Today, I want to talk to you about a lie. It's not necessarily anything that's said to your face directly, but it gets in your head and it's sneaky. The lie is this: I need to have it all figured out. Maybe it's never said out loud or anything like that, but it's felt. In your head, in your heart. I don't know enough. I need to do a lot more research. I'm not good enough. So today I'd really like to just kind of address this, and just try and dispel this lie. And number one is, where does it come from? We weren't born with this. When you watch a baby walk, a baby takes a little step at a time. It falls down, then it goes crawling again, then it takes another step and gets up and takes another step, and it really is a step at a time. I know that probably sounds very cliche, but it's true. Everything doesn't come at once. There is failure. There is getting back up and doing that again. But I think one of the places that this lie comes from is school. When you flunk a test, you don't do well on an essay or something like that. We're given a D or a C or an F even. There's some people who consider a B a failure. So I think that's one area. And the other is, regrettably, a lot of adults that are around us gets this passed on to us. They tell you to, look before you leap, and, don't take, unnecessary risk. There is some wisdom in that, but, there's also the sticking point of not really doing anything or not moving forward. And I think sometimes that gets taught to us by our elders at the time. I think it starts when we're young. Another point, number two, I'd like to cover is why it feels true. And that's the most dangerous part of it. It feels true. We think, golly, I just feel inadequate. And feelings really, in my opinion, and what I've kind of learned over my lifetime now, is that feelings can really get in the way of a lot of things. Just because something feels a certain way doesn't mean it's true. A lot of times it is not. We're told things that aren't true, so we start to actually even feel that way. But if you can get through that feeling of failure, the feeling of, I'm lost here, I'm scared, that's a big one. I'm scared to start something new. That's something that we also need to overcome, is our feelings, really, to be honest with you, because in a lot of cases they're not true. And point number three I'd like to cover is what the lie actually costs you. And I think the number one thing is time, because you never really get started on something. It took me a year to get started doing YouTube videos. I signed up for it in March of 2025, and I didn't get started until March of this year, 2026, because I was like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to say. But I had to start somewhere. So finally, I made that decision to start. And then another thing that it costs you is psychologically, I think it can be damaging. You really, really get stuck in a rut, and you feel like you're nothing but a procrastinator, and you're just never gonna amount to anything or something like that. But you know, it weighs on you. You feel stuck. So those are two things that I think it actually costs you. Number 4 that I want to go over is the truth nobody tells you about starting. And this really kind of struck me, was that nobody has it figured out. You know, if you take some big job, there's no way when you go into that job that you're going to know everything that you need to do. There will be times when you'll have to figure things out, kind of on the fly. And if you even if you become president of the United States, there are things that come up, and they don't have it all figured out before they get into office, because things happen that you don't foresee. So, that's another one to kind of get out of your head. And listen, I'm speaking from experience. I know because I have procrastinated about many things in my life. So I'm with you on this. But clarity comes from action and not from thinking. You gotta take some kind of action. Thinking is involved, but the action also, it has to be there. Then number 5 that I'd like to cover is what figuring it all out looks like. Figuring it all out is a destination. It's a process. Again, kind of like the last one I was saying, you just cannot predict everything. There will be failures and getting down, like I was saying with the baby, falling down, crawling, then getting up again, and then falling again, and then maybe a little more crawling, but then you get up, you take a few more steps. Then number 6 that I'd like to cover is how to start before you're ready, if that makes sense. Number 1 would be to shrink the starting point, to shrink that down. You don't have to wait a year like I did with starting the YouTube channel. You want to make a shorter starting time from the time you decide to do something to the time you actually start it. Make it shorter. And then number 2 under that is separate the decision to start from the decision to commit forever. So, in other words, when you start, when you have your decision to start, and before you commit to forever, there's going to be adjustments. You may have to start something all over again. And in some cases, you may figure this really isn't worth my time or effort, so I'm not going to commit forever to this. And then the number 3 thing that will help is to set a deadline for preparation. In other words, you're getting everything prepared. Let's say it's 2 weeks, something like that. Just trying to give an example. And then, okay, once that's up, let's go. Let's do it. I think that also helps us psychologically to get going. And then the seventh thing that I like to cover is the one thing that changes everything. Now, people who do these things, you know, people who do things, they build things, they create things. They decided to getting something done was better than getting it perfect, and starting was better, than being ready. You know, I've heard about this experiment they've done. It was in some kind of art class where they were learning to make pottery, and there was a group of people who they said, okay, take your time on this, make make the pottery the best you can and everything. So in other words, it was a longer process. And then there was a group who put out more than the group that was trying to do better quality. And eventually the group that did more were better at making pottery than the people who were trying to make high quality from the very beginning. You see, because the practice, again, another cliche, practice makes perfect. So they were learning as they went along. And I've had to do that with both my Amazon KDP and my YouTube channel, is to just keep putting them out there. I've had videos that have done terrible. I've had a few that have done pretty well, but I have to keep learning along the way. I have decided to not throw my hands up in the air and just quit. I decided to make this long term, make that commitment. So, the truth says begin, but the lie says wait. So don't listen to the lie, listen to the truth. So my challenge to you this week would be, whatever it is that you want to do, take a little bit of time, maybe a week or so, to prepare, and then start. Do it. Again, I know I say this a lot, but it's true. That's what I did eventually with the YouTube channel and the Amazon KDP. Was I just started. I said, no more fooling around. I'm done. Done trying to think, what I'm going to make my channel about, or what I'm going to do my books on, or whatever. So I hope this video helped you. And if you like it, gently tap the like button and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.